Hi everyone, it's a real pleasure to be here today. As Andy said, I kind of was called in last minute because Professor Helen Kennedy couldn't come. So it's a bit of a last minute presentation I put together, and also the first time that I ever give this presentation, so please be kind. And if I am nervous, don't be too harsh. Okay, so my name is Mihaela, as you can see here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about infographics, and particularly how does that link with research. So just a quick show of hands, who knows what infographics are? Okay, and who has ever used infographics? Great. Okay, well hopefully by the end of this talk, all of you will know what infographics are and have some practical ways in which you can use infographics for your own research. So just before I start telling you about that, I'm just going to share my story and why I'm here today to be talking to you. So it all started 2 years ago when I was in Brussels. I was working for a consultancy representing private sector clients in front of the European Commission in the chemicals industry, so communicating a lot of complex research and information that the clients had in front of institutions in the European Union. And one of the things we were doing really well was communicating information clearly. We had an amazing graphic designer on board, and it was then when I was introduced to this whole world of communication and infographics. I was back then still involved with academics at the University of Sheffield, and one of my academics told me, I need help. I've just finished a research grant and I'm going to meet some ministers in Africa, and I need to communicate my research to them. I need to tell them how they can change their policy, how my research is helping them, how it's making a difference, and I don't know what to do apart from a 2-page A4, not so attractive looking document. So I said, hold on a minute. We do infographics in Brussels in the company I was working for. It would seem that in 2014 sort of infographics had exploded. This is just a small taste of what infographics are and look like. So I said, hey, I think we can help you. So we helped Dr. Brown here at the University of Sheffield so translate and visually communicate this 60-page document. This is just 1 page of the executive summary into this. I have some copies here and printed, so if you want to come and talk to me afterwards and have a look through, it's essentially a 2-page visual summary that he used, not necessarily to guarantee that impact, but to open the door to further conversations with ministers and to sort of promote his research beyond academia, which is what he was looking for. So it was then when I had my light bulb moment, I said, hold on a second, I'm sure that just like Dr. Brown, there's plenty of other academics out there who need help communicating their research findings. Not they can't necessarily do it, but they don't have the time and not necessarily the patience and design skills to sort of learn how to put an infographic together. So it was then when I decided to start a small company called Retold, which specializes in the translation and visual communication of research. Before I get on to talk about that, let's just quickly turn back to the point of the talk, which is infographics. So what are infographics? Some of you said you don't know what they are. Well, simply put, infographics are just a type of picture that combine data and design. So I'm sure that probably you've heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Manifesto that speaks to the value of visual communication. So more formally, an infographic is defined as a visualization of data or ideas, or simply put, explanation graphics. The key is that they're visual. So there's a lot of benefits to communicating information visually, and you've probably all used, do you use social media? Yes, you probably know. There's just this sort of burst of images on Twitter, on Facebook. Information is just communicated differently. So the benefits that infographics have is just they're pictures and not paragraphs. So people are just more likely to engage with that kind of content. And just in general, 70%, a statistic that I didn't just pull out of the air, but I found that online through my research, 70% of people prefer images to text. So this is a huge untapped potential for academics to sort of piggyback on this trend and use images to communicate their research. We have a very short attention span. Hopefully you're still all with me and you haven't lost it. But research shows that 8 seconds is our attention span. So, you get this sort of long document, you're most likely going to lose interest by this 5th line because it's just not how our brains are programmed to process information. And visuals can help with that. Last but not least, just infographics are more persuasive, more effective, more engaging. So communicating your information in a visual format is just likely to get your audience on board a lot quicker. Okay, so enough about infographics like on a general term. We're here to talk about research, we're here to talk about academics. You've put a lot of hard work in producing a long piece of research, and now the next step is to communicate that to the wider audiences, and that can seem really, really daunting. How can infographics help research in particular, where the word that some people love and some people hate is called impact? So in my sort of work with academics, and I've worked with a number of academics at the University of Sheffield, Leeds, and Derby, I've learned that part of that sort of research grant application process is to write what's called the pathway to impact. So one of the good ways of creating this impact opportunity is by more effectively communicating your research to non-experts. So it's enough speaking to your colleagues about it, but when it comes to telling other people who may have never even heard about your subject area, how do you grab their attention and how do you convince them that what you've been researching for the past 4 years is going to make their lives better? So infographics are just one way to fulfill that pathway to impact narrative. You could sort of write it in at the beginning of your grant, or if you have leftover sort of grant money, you could use it to create this sort of document. As I said before, infographics are not a guarantor of impact. It's not like you create the infographic and that's it. But it just unlocks that opportunity. It sort of opens the door. It's a great way to sort of briefly tell someone in 2 minutes what your research is about, and then open another conversation from there. So it's becoming increasingly important for academics to show that their research is having impact. And I believe that infographics are a fantastic vehicle to do that. So if your research is good anyway, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to visualize it in a way that is compatible with the way people actually consume information. So how can you actually use infographics? Now, I'm completely aware of the fact that some of you people in this room might say, sorry, this is just not for me. So by speaking with some academics, I know there's a hard-nosed academic who will never put an image in his research, and that's fine. This is not for anyone, and it doesn't mean that if you don't do infographics, then your research is not good enough. No, that's absolutely not the case. But if you do want to communicate it in a different way, the good news is that there are tools out there and companies that can help you do that. So the other type of attitude would be, hey, this is great, I want to do it myself. If you do have the time, I know that a lot of academics split their time between research, teaching, and a bunch of soul-destroying admin that everyone has to do. So it's going to take up a lot of your time. But if you do find this fascinating and you want to do it on your own in your free time, I've put together a list of tools that I'm happy to share around. But seriously, if you just Google do-it-yourself infographics, softwares to create infographics, there's just a bunch of companies that have absolutely exploded over the last few years. Infogram, Easily, they're kind of these drag-and-drop builders that you can use to just quickly put together a more interesting-looking summary of your research. As I said, the third attitude would be, listen, I love this, but I'm just too busy, I don't have the time. And this is why Research Retold how Research Retold came about, and how I thought, well, I might as well put a team of people together who specialize doing this. So almost like Michael said, White Rose started from a need of academics, just it was pushed by that need. Just in the same way we started saying, okay, there's a number of academics out there who would love to communicate their research more effectively. They are going to all these incredibly interesting meetings. So my clients have gone to Hollywood to speak to industry experts. In 2 weeks, they're going to a UN conference to speak about the responsibility to protect. And the one I showed you here was presented at a super high-profile ministerial meeting with African health ministers. So there's just that amazing opportunity for them to just communicate their research more effectively. So Research Retold takes a very simple approach. Probably when people say simple, it's not that simple, but the first step is to translate the research. So we have a consultation with you, we would ask you what are your impact needs, we try to think about the audience you're going to present to, and we manage to boil down your research to a 2-page summary. And then I collaborate with graphic design experts who are experts in data visualization. So we try to sort of bring your research to life in a way that your audience could sort of really engage with a lot better. So as I said, we've worked with a number of academics so far. I have examples of my work to show you. This one was a research that we visualized in sound engineering. This one is an impact report from the Entrepreneurs Foundation. That one was an infographic based on our research in global health policymaking. This is, as I said, the responsibility to protect is going to be presented at the UN, which is awesome. And then this other one is another impact report showing how this particular social enterprise is engaging with young students. So these are just a couple of examples. We're at the beginning of a long journey, and we're very excited to be able to work with academics who understand the need to communicate their research more effectively. Just one last point I'd like to make. Infographics in and of itself are more about a mindset of making your research more visual, making your presentations more visual, making your lectures more visuals with your students. So just understanding that if you use one image instead of 1,000 words, you might be able to send across a message in a much more effective way. So that's it from me. If you do want to get in touch, please follow me on Twitter or send me a tweet or give me an email, or just I'll be around at the next October event when Professor Helen Kennedy will hopefully come. So yeah, it was a pleasure to speak to you today, and I hope to talk to you in the break.